Okay, now we're going to be talking about motivation and emotion. Now let's start. What is motivation? Motivation is a force that moves people to behave, think, and feel as they do. Is motivation something you can see? No. But we assume that it is there, and we assume that we have this motivation within us that essentially pushes us to do things, to achieve high goals, to become the best we can be. So we all feel motivation within us, I would say, but and we can kind of, we see how it perhaps drives us to do the things that we do. But really, it's one of those things in psychology that we cannot see, hear, smell, feel, or taste, but we nevertheless try to assess it and try to measure it and try to understand it. It energizes us. Motivation energizes us. It directs us. It sustains behavior. If you have a motivation to achieve a certain goal, that motivation is strong enough, we can stay on task until we reach that goal. And I believe we consider this to be a very important part of what it means to be a human being. Here is a pretty graphic example of how motivation can push someone to achieve a goal. In Aron Ralston's case, there was he had a circumstance where he had to cut off his arm in order to free himself, and he was pinned under a rock, and he tried and tried and tried to get free, but he couldn't, and he realized that the only way he could do it was to cut his own arm off to free himself. And he did it, and he survived. Motivation to survival is higher than the motivation to keep your arm, and that drove him to do it. There was a recent movie starring James Franco that dramatized Aron's circumstance. We could look at motives as intervening variables. There's an in-between there going on between the stimuli that we encounter in the environment and the response that we voluntarily engage in, the behaviors that we take. So, for example, if you take a look here, if there was no such thing in the world as motivation, you could look at a stimulus being a dry mouth as a stimulus that would lead us to take one of three different paths. Drink for water fountain, stop to purchase a soft drink, or we might be more likely to notice an ad for orange juice. Okay, so the circumstance of having a dry mouth, perhaps not enough fluid to produce enough saliva, you have a dry mouth. Another stimulus might be eating salty food, okay, which could lead to also to any of those three responses. Perspiration following exercise, likewise, can lead to any or all of those three responses. Okay. But the concept of motive as an intervening variable says, well, what do these things all have in common? And clearly we could see that thirst is a dry mouth is an indication that you are thirsty. When you eat salty food, it makes you thirsty. When you are sweating after exercising, it makes you thirsty. Okay? So it's this feeling of thirst, this motive of thirst, that then leads you to drink from the water fountain, stop to purchase a soft drink, and noticing that ad. And the argument being that it's that motive that's what's pushing you to do those things. The stimuli essentially signal, and the thirst is what pushes you to do those behaviors. So there are a number of different theories of motivation. Here are the theories that we're going to be discussing in this class. We have the instinct theory, which argues essentially that your behavior is motivated by internal instincts that that are inborn, and that environmental stimuli activate them. You have the drive reduction theory, which essentially says that we have this unpleasant, aversive drive that, to do various things, to eat food or drink water, and we need to reduce that arousal, reduce that unpleasant state of arousal, and bring us back into balance, which is which is like equilibrium. The arousal theory is kind of related to drive reduction, except it's not just saying that you need to reduce your arousal times. You also sometimes need to increase your arousal, and that we are actually motivated to achieve an optimum level of arousal. The incentive theory essentially is arguing that we are essentially looking for rewards, and we are motivated by the rewards that we get, and this goes right back to the operant conditioning and learning, is that we are motivated to do things in order to get rewards. However, some of those rewards are internal and some of those rewards are external. So this is the distinction between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Finally, Abraham Maslow develops his hierarchy of needs to essentially show the various ways in which different motives compete with each other, and that we need to satisfy some motives before we can reach higher level motives. And higher level motives include like self-esteem or self-actualization, at the very top of that hierarchy. And we'll talk more about each of these theories.